Hello, everybody. I just wanted to share something with you, a few things that many people have a vague awareness of, but it's not something they think about every single day. And God has just put on my heart and my husband's heart human trafficking. And you may be aware of what it is, or you may have no idea what it is. But I just want to talk about slavery for a minute. And slavery is something for most of us, when we think about it, we think about in the past. We think about a long time ago. And actually, right now, today, there is more slavery in existence on the planet than there ever has been in the history of humanity. 27 million people, most of them, the majority of them, women and children. The majority of the women and children are minors under 14 years old, are enslaved through human trafficking, through sex trafficking. That's 27 million people. That number alone is more than there ever has been people enslaved in the history of the world. If we look at the Bible and just stories in the Bible, the one thing, actually one of the two things that made God the angriest was slavery. The other thing that made him the angriest was false idols. And both of these tie together quite a bit. In addition to 27 million people in the world being enslaved through human trafficking, there's an additional 200 million people who are forced today, who are forced into some type of cousin of slavery. It's just a little bit looser than slavery. It's forced labor. It's arranged marriages. And actually, let me just look at here. 200 million people are in bondage. A lot of these people are children. In the United States alone, in the United States, we don't think about this happening here. When we think about human trafficking and slavery, we thought that was over. After the Civil War, it's not. It's just growing and it's getting worse. And it's taken a new face and a new name. It's hiding in disguises, but it still existed, and it's growing more every single day. In the United States alone, 800,000 women and children go through human trafficking. They are trafficked for sex slavery, forced sex slavery. I just want to take a minute to talk about human trafficking and what happens and what that really means. Because occasionally we might read an article about it, or we might even say a prayer about it. But I truly believe if we really become aware of what happens with human sex trafficking, that there would be nothing that could hold us back. It would take some really, really hardened hearts not to do something about it. And that's the whole purpose of this message. Girls, the biggest age group for human trafficking is 11 years old to 14-year-old girls. There are some boys that are trafficked and women, but it's mostly young girls. And they have their passports taken away from them, so they can't escape, so they can't run away. They are abducted from poverty situations. Families who are in poverty situations sometimes sell their children. Young college graduates and high school graduates that go out on spring breaks, the ones that don't come home, a lot of them end up being abducted. They're drugged, they're kidnapped, they're taken away. This could happen to your daughter. This could happen to your neighbor. What happens? Just a few examples of what happens when young girls are abducted, when they're in whatever fashion that they come into human trafficking. They're raped repeatedly on a daily basis. They're housed in the worst of situations, the worst of conditions. They're not really given any hygiene items to take care of themselves. They don't have access to any type of health care. barely fed. They're just given the absolute worst conditions. One story we watched recently from a missionary from Australia who went to Eastern Europe to work with, in Turkey, to work with human trafficking victims. She had met this girl who was a survivor of human trafficking. A young girl, I think she was 15 years old, and this girl had been kidnapped, and she and 60 other girls, there was a total of 60 girls together, they were shipped from one country to another, and from Turkey to Greece in shipping containers with no oxygen. And that's not just a one-day trip. I mean, that's a long time. 60 girls who had already been raped repeatedly for days, barely clothed and barely fed anything, and then put in containers that had no oxygen while they were shipped to another, being trafficked to another country, to Greece. And 30 of the girls out of 60 died for just lack of oxygen during that trip. Once they got to a specific location, the traffickers then put the girls, young teenagers, preteens, and they put them on a boat, and they were taking them to another location. And while they were on the boat out in the ocean, they came across like the European equivalent of like the Coast Guard, and so they did not get caught. They took the remaining girls, 30 of them, and they threw them overboard. Just quick, casual waste of life. And so they threw these 30 girls overboard. And most of them didn't know how to swim because they had come from landlocked places and they weren't around water much. And so after they had been raped day in and day out, not taken care of, survived terrible conditions, survived even suffocation, then they're going to another destination, they get thrown overboard. And out of the 30 girls that were thrown overboard, 5 of them lived. And one girl who was in that, who was a part of that, was talking to this missionary, and the missionary was telling her about God, and that God has hope for her and has a plan for her. And the girl said to her, "If your God is who he says he is, how come you didn't come sooner?" And we know that our God is who he says he is, and he's who we say he is. But it's not about who God is. It's about what we're willing to do for God, what we're willing to follow through with. The other thing that I talked about that is something that makes God angry is false idols. And we have more false idols now, today, than there ever has been in the history of the world. There are so many things for us to worship, and so many things believers and non-believers worship and spend their money and their time and their efforts chasing. Entertainment. Just think how you spend your money, what you purchase, and I really believe God will convict your heart of what you're doing, because he's convicted mine. It certainly is. It wasn't easy to come face to face with, you can tell what you worship by where your time and efforts and your energy go to. And when I realized that, I knew I just couldn't keep doing what I've been doing. In the world, there are over 100 million homeless people. That's 1/4 of the world's population. This ties into human trafficking. Because human trafficking, it's usually not the people in the suburbs, in the middle class suburbs, who are doing well and they're homeschooled or they live in gated communities that are typically victims for human trafficking. It's people in poverty situations, because those are the people that can go missing and nobody notices. And this is happening on our watch. This is happening on our watch. So every time we go out into the streets and help the homeless people, every time we go out and tell them about Jesus, every time we invest in their lives, every time we go feed children and families in poverty situations and give them our phone numbers and help them fill out job applications, every time we give a single mom in a poverty situation a ride to find a job or a ride to work, or you volunteer to watch our kids for her, when we are helping to reduce the risk factor of what contributes to human trafficking. When you look at human trafficking globally with 27 million people, it is like, it's overwhelming. And I really do believe that what stops us is that we say, that's too big for me. I can't make a difference. So we all ignore it. We leave it up to government officials, and the government officials are not making any progress. If you haven't noticed, this is an epidemic that is growing more substantially every single day. And until individuals start making a difference, start doing something, start turning away from entertainment and turning to follow God and say, God, let's go do this together. Until that happens, this is going to continue to grow. I honestly believe we're going to have to answer for it. I really, really do. I don't believe that this can go on, that slavery is at the highest it has ever been in the history of the world, and that we're not going to have to answer for it. And it is a cycle, you know, and I think about who my heart aches for the most out of all the different types of situations and people in the world. It's human trafficking victims. I'm not going to go there, but it's hard for us to imagine what happens to them. But when they're raped, they're not just always raped like what we would think, like forced intercourse. A lot of these girls are burned. They're raped with sticks, metal pipes, glass bottles, in every part of their body, everywhere that they can be raped. They're cut, they're beaten. If they try to run away, they make examples of them, the traffickers do. They torture them like crazy in ways we can't imagine. And they make the other girls watch to put a fear in them so they'll never try to run away. And then they'll shoot them or stab them to death or burn them alive. These things happen. Right now, as you're listening to this, that is going on to more than one person. Right now, as you're listening to this, a girl's being raped, sodomized, crying out, somebody help me. We can't let this continue to happen. The Bible tells us that we are amply supplied to follow Jesus. Jesus says, lay down your life and follow me. He says, die to yourself so you can be alive in me. And even if you're not a believer, the very words of dying to yourself so you can be alive in Jesus may seem unobtainable. It may not even make sense to you, but what that means is whatever is holding you captive in your life, whether it's entertainment, purchasing more items, relationships, whatever is holding you captive, taking up all of your time, Jesus says, lay that down and follow me. I have better plans for you. His plans include us sacrificing what we now hold important that are meaningless and following him so we can have a meaningful life. My family and I have just started doing this recently, and I have to tell you, if you're sitting here and you're thinking, yeah, my heart is really not telling me to go work with human trafficking victims. My heart is not really telling me to go help out single moms. My heart is not telling me to go work with homeless people. Let me just tell you something. My heart didn't either. It didn't. There was no force of love that when I started working with homeless people that led me. I was just reading in the Bible and it says, Jesus says, go help the poor. And I'm like, he says help the poor. I haven't been doing that. He didn't say tithe or help the poor. He said do these things, and there's a long list of things, but they're doable. So I read it and I'm like, I guess I need to do that. There was no big motivation factor in my heart. Honestly, it started with my mind. He said, go help the poor. And I'm like, okay, Jesus, you said to do it, I'm going to go do it. And once I went on the streets and started helping homeless people, started taking them gifts, taking them food, praying with them, getting to know them, my heart became consumed with love. And that love grew every single day. And that love was shared with other people who then went and got involved. Then when they went, they had a lot of, their testimonies include that they had a lot of misconceptions, a lot of opinions, you know, about biases against homeless people. And I'll tell you, some of the things that lead to homeless people, the biggest contributing factors that lead to people being homeless, natural disasters, unhealthy relationships, the erosion of families, the breakdown of families, lack of affordable housing, loss of jobs, lack of adequate income, lack of social support. And I'm not talking about government-funded programs. I'm talking about individuals like you and I going out and saying, we're here, we're going to prop you up. We're going to prop you up. We're going to encourage, instruct, train, teach, be there for you, walk through this difficult part of life. If every single Christian started doing this, started selling their possessions, and started investing in others more than we're investing in ourselves, we would see human trafficking come to an end. No joke. We would see human trafficking come to an end. 1/4 of the people in the world are homeless. If every single person stopped spending a lot of money on entertainment, stopped thinking a lot about themselves and their needs and their desires, and started investing in other people, we would see that 1/4 of the world's population who are homeless greatly reduced. When we see extreme poverty and situations and poverty in our neighborhoods going down, we're going to see human trafficking going down. And those girls who said, why didn't you show up sooner? There's going to be fewer girls saying that, because we're going to be there on time. We're going to be there before it happens. We're going to be there to pull them out of the shipping crates. We're going to be there to pull them out of a brothel when a man is walking towards them with a metal pipe. I want to read you something. 2 things. Matthew chapter 13, verse 14 says, and you will keep on seeing, but will not receive, for the heart of this people has become dull, and with their ears they scarcely hear, and they have closed eyes, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears. I want to turn to Revelations 19:10. Revelations 19:10 says, worship God, for the testimony of Jesus Christ is the spirit of prophecy. And if you think, because you haven't been to Bible school, because you don't have a college degree, because you have no experience, and maybe much of anything, that you're not equipped, that you're not amply supplied to go and begin making a difference in people's lives, to begin letting your light shine, if you think you're not equipped, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. That means you share what Jesus has done for you to others. You walk in that. You ask Jesus to make more opportunities available for you. You're sharing your personal testimony of hope with others. It doesn't have to be the same testimony that a human trafficking victim may have. But you share a Jesus Christ with others is going to make a difference. You investing less in yourself and more in others is going to make a global difference. It's going to save lives. When you start, I promise you, if you start investing more in others than you do in yourself, you're going to save lives. You're going to make a difference. And when we die and we're kneeling before God, hopefully we won't have to answer to, why did you let that happen on your watch? Why didn't you do anything about that? So Revelations 19:10 says, "For the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy." The very next verse, "And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat up on it is called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he judges and wages war." The war's been waged. God has drawn the line in the sand and said, who is stepping up to go to war? Every single time in the history of the world that slavery has been substantial, there has been a war. But this time, it's going to be individuals, because this war is not one country against another. Human trafficking is all over the world. It's Europe, Japan, India, the United States. Those places is where human trafficking is the most rampant. Are we going to step up to that line? I just want to tell you one last thing. And that is, I guess, just a little bit, I'll just share a little bit of my testimony with you. And that is, I have my own experience with sexual exploitation for many, many, many years. And as a result of that, for many years, I was like in a really deep depression. And I felt justified. The world would justify me. Going by the world standards, I probably could have gone to a doctor and had myself declared clinically depressed, and maybe could have even been considered disabled because of that. But honestly, I didn't do that. I just wasn't smart enough to do it. Or maybe I just felt like I wasn't even worth that. But I tell you, after many years of being in a depression, instead of feeling, of God feeling sorry for me, God's response to me was, are we done yet? Are you done being depressed? Are you done thinking only about yourself? Are you done being self-centered and self-absorbed? Yes, something bad happened to you, but it's over. It's over, and you're still thinking about it. And I could really, literally hear him saying, should I wait another 10 years while you go on being depressed? For another decade? And I stopped being self-centered in that area. It's like, you're right, God. I'm just thinking about myself. I want to go help others. I want to go help others. My family and I are making plans to go to Serbia. Serbia is the center of human trafficking in Eastern Europe. It's in the middle of Macedonia and Bosnia and Kosovo, several other countries, Hungary, Romania. It used to be part of Yugoslavia, and that's bigger than us. We don't feel equipped for that, but we trust in God. We'll go where He's calling us to go. We will go where He's calling us to go. Every day we feel like He reveals something a little more bolder in His plans for us, and we're just totally trusting in Him. I want to say this, when we heard this story from the same missionary who works with human trafficking girls, and she talked about her daughter getting a flashlight, and the girl turned her flashlight on in Walmart, and she said, Mommy, she couldn't see, the flashlight work because the light shined in a place that was already bright. And the little girl said, Mommy, can we go to the darkness so my light will shine? And I think that's what God's calling all of us to do. Our lights are pretty bright in our families and in our churches already. But let's begin spreading those lights across the globe. So while we prepare to go to Serbia, it's going to be a process, because there's a lot to get ready for and to prepare for. We also feel called to inform people, educate people, encourage people, pray with people, and share with people about this. It's individuals that's going to make a difference, like you and I, and your neighbor, and your spouse, and your family. It's not the government that's going to make a difference. It's churches coming together, single people. No matter who you are, you can make a difference. We will come and speak to your church. We'll come and speak to your small group. We'll come and speak to your school. We'll come to your house and speak. There's no place we won't go. We're willing to do whatever it takes to spread the word, to encourage people, to lift one another up, so we can begin making a difference. So we can begin making a difference. You know those clocks, when they, if somebody's having a telethon or something, the numbers are like going up like this. We want to see that 27 million start going down and down and down. If you'd like us to come and speak, just contact us and we will. We'll be happy to. There's a lot more we have to share about this and share our hearts with you, and I believe we have some good information to give you. I just encourage you to start praying and become willing. Your heart doesn't have to be fully filled with the compassion, because ours wasn't. But when we went out and just started doing what Jesus said to do, we were overwhelmed with compassion for what we saw and for love for people, and that grows every day. And that love drives us to be willing to do anything. And I know it will happen for you too. You just have to be willing to step up to the line and say, I'm ready. I'm answering your call, God. I'll respond to your call. We're not going to let this happen on our watch. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you listening.